Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for tuning in to today's webinar on applying for manufacturing training grants. My name is Nancy Patton and I work within our marketing and communications department here at Saltmarsh, and I'll be your moderator for today. Today's webinar is hosted by our manufacturing team, who specialize in accounting and auditing services for manufacturing and distribution. And joining us today, we have Krista Garner, Christine Torrefranca, and Suzanne Cox, along with our special guest from FloridaMakes, Paula DeLuca. Before we get started, I have some few housekeeping notes to go over. Everyone on the line has been muted for privacy. If you have questions, you're welcome to share them in the questions feature of your GoToWebinar's controls. If we have time at the end of the webinar to ask these questions, we'll answer them. And then you're also welcome to share questions at info@saltmarshcpa.com, and we'll follow up with you that way. Our webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive that recording in your email either today after the webinar or tomorrow. And upon leaving, you'll be prompted to complete a very short survey. We'd like to know what you thought about this presentation and grab any feedback on future topics you'd like for us to cover. I'm going to kick it over to Suzanne to get us started.
Hey guys, good afternoon. Hopefully everybody's doing great today. Short week. Hopefully you all are enjoying that. We are so happy to have a guest with us today. Paula is here from FloridaMakes, and she is going to teach us some new stuff. These are some new things I learned just after I met Paula. So I was excited to share it with the rest of our team and our clients, and hopefully some prospects in the future. So as Nancy mentioned, this will be recorded and saved on our landing page for future views as well. So if you are not able to stay the whole time, if you need to pop off, you're always welcome to check out our recording later. So a little bit about Paula. She has been with FloridaMakes for 4 years now. However, she has been in manufacturing for many, many years. She's been in all types of manufacturing: materials management, inventory, logistics, supply chain, lean and continuous improvement processes, customer service, you name it, she's been in it. So she comes with a very nice pedigree as far as her manufacturing background. So that's really important when it comes to this, because she can walk into any company, any manufacturing company, and know what is going on and what your challenges are and where your needs are. And so those qualifications really put her in a great position to be an advisor to your company. She's been in many industries, as you can see here: aerospace, security, automotive, medical, electronic, machine shops, everything. So again, she can walk in and just start talking the talk, and that's such a valuable expertise to have when you're looking at a consultant to help you with your business. She has been a past president of the Buffalo chapter of APICS, and she also has been an adjunct instructor for the production inventory class at South Florida State. We've been doing a lot with Florida Southern lately, so it's on my brain. She has also invited her cat today, if you guys can see behind her. So he is there to keep everyone in line. We really, noticed that one of the first times we had a Zoom call or a Teams call, we were like, wow, that is a really cool picture. So he's there to keep us all in line today. And Paula, I will transfer it over to you now, and you can take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Suzanne. And yes, I have the tiger in my tank with me today, and I'm very happy to be here with all of you, and here to answer any questions that you may have. I just wanted to start out, for the folks who do not know about FloridaMakes, just tell you a little bit about us. We are the manufacturing extension partner for the state of Florida. We are a private nonprofit company, and we have had the contract to be the MEP for Florida for the last, I guess we're going on our 6th year now. Some of the things that we do to help manufacturing companies: we do enterprise assessments. We do that at no charge to you. It's a great way to have us come in and do sort of a gap analysis to see where you may have some best practices, along with some opportunities for improvement. We also do a business continuity assessment, and that also is at no charge. So, yesterday started hurricane season. So if you don't have a business continuity plan, or if you would like to see if yours needs updating, it's a good time to have us do that for you. We can help you with business growth strategy, any technology implementations. Perhaps you're looking to get ISO certified or AS9100 certified. We can also help you with those things. We released last year a Connex database, which really connects all of the manufacturing companies within the state of Florida. So pretty important if you're looking for new suppliers or maybe new customers, or maybe customers are looking for new suppliers. It could work the other way. It is much easier to work with companies within the state, so you don't have to fly, out of the state to make connections. We help you with process improvements, helping to sustain your business, and also workforce training, which is really what we're going to focus on today with the grants. So the agenda I'm going to go through today, we're going to talk about the IWT state grant, which is the incumbent worker training grant. We're going to talk about a veterans grant, and we're also going to talk about grants that are available in the local counties. Some of the key takeaways for you today, of course, getting money back to your bottom line. Who doesn't want more money back to their bottom line? And workforce, again, is a very important subject with about every company today. About every company I talk to, they really are having a tough time finding workforce. So pretty important to be training the workforce that you do have, teach them new things so that they, have a better breadth of doing many things within the company to help you out. And then we're also going to explain how you can get specialized training for your company. So I do want to make note of this. The grant year starts July 1st. Up until that point, I don't know if they're making any changes from last year. So I just want to make you aware that the information I'm going to give you today is the information from the previous year. The only thing I'm really anticipating they may change is potentially the dollar amount that they will assign to each company. So first, we're going to talk about the Incumbent Worker Training Grant, the IWT as it is called, and this is through the state. So this grant is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Commerce, and it's administered through CareerSource in Tallahassee. It was created for the purpose of providing grant funding for the training of your incumbent workers, of course, in Florida businesses. And the grant year runs from July 1st through June 30th. And we'll have more discussion about that because the date timelines kind of dependent as to when you actually get approval of your grant. But this is when the grant year starts. July 1st is the first day that we can apply for it. And I just wanted to let everybody know that although I am happy to help you with the grant application, we have nothing to do with administering the approval or the grant, but we do help you to maximize the amount of money that you can get for your application. So the last 3 years, there has been a maximum of $200,000 that can be approved for an organization. Now, of course, there are different stipulations about that, but we'll go through that as well. But you can figure about $3,500 per employee for reimbursement purposes. So it is awarded on a first come, first served basis. So, pretty important for us to be working on this information and having it ready as soon as we can. On the amount, let's say you have 20 employees, and if we figure about $3,500 per employee, you can get a grant of approximately $70,000 for your company. So it's, it can still make a very big impact on your company. The training for these grants, in particular the state grant, there is no salary cap for the employee that's being trained, and I say it's from president to production. So, there can be leadership training, it can be team building. It doesn't just necessarily have to be for somebody who's working on the production floor. They can be in sales, they can be in project management, really any position within the company. The grant is a reimbursement grant, and the percentage is based on the number of employees that you have at your company. This is very, very exciting for a lot of companies, and I'll tell you, I wish I had known about this when I was a materials manager, because I would have been a hero for my company of getting all this money back. If your company has 50 or less employees, you can get up to a 75% reimbursement on training, which that's awesome. And on the other side, if you have over 50 employees, it would be up to a 50% reimbursement on training. So it's still a very, very good investment for your company. The definition of an incumbent worker by the state, the employee must work at least 37.5 hours a week. They have to be a full-time employee and receive a W-2 from your company, and your company cannot be using a PEO. They have to be 18 years of age or older. They have to be a citizen or have a work permit. They have to be a Florida resident, and they have to be employed at least 6 months before the signature date of the application. And that is just another important date time frame. What I will tell people, let's say you just hired a new person and they've only worked for your company for 2 months, but there's other people that are going to be going through this training. And typically how we work, we'll bring the trainers in, as long as it's not a per person training charge. In most cases it's, you know, by the day or the hour. You can still train that new person. You just will not be able to claim reimbursement for that person. So, you know, they can still be trained. So I like to tell everybody kind of the little side things about it so that you're well prepared. Eligibility for FloridaMakes to help you with the application. You have to be a company that's for profit, and I'm sure you all are. You have to have a manufacturing NAICS code for your company. Listed on D&B, in operation for at least a year prior to the application date. So you couldn't have just started the company like 3 months ago. Again, you do not use a PEO, professional employment organization, you know, to do your payroll. You have to demonstrate commitment to do the training of your employees, and of course you're doing that by, you know, applying for this application to do training. You know, the bottom line is you're going to be doing training for your employees, so that's really what the focus is. You will have to demonstrate financial viability. That is done via a tax clearance letter, and I have a link that I will share with you when it is time, because again, that's a time-phased thing to be able to get that tax clearance letter. You also have to be compliant with EEOC requirements, which I'm sure your company is as well. And you have to have at least one full-time employee. So you could be, you know, a company of one and still take advantage of this grant. The other thing is you could not have received the grant the previous year. This particular state grant you can only apply for every other year.
Hey Paula, this
Yes.
is Krista, and I just wanted to ask a question. If a manufacturer doesn't have a NAICS code, what should they do?
So in the case, if you are in fact a manufacturing company, and when I look on my government D&B database, I will look up your company. It will show me what NAICS code is assigned to your company. If there is not a manufacturing NAICS code assigned to your company, you can contact me and I can help you to get a manufacturing NAICS code assigned to your company. And there is a process to go through that. It's very simple because I go on the website, I do what's, and I tell people, don't be scared because the cops aren't coming, but they call it opening an investigation. It's literally really just opening a case file for them to look at your company and verify that you are in fact doing manufacturing. I would put notations in there. I would need a contact name, a cell phone number, because D&B may try to call you, and they will only try calling a couple of times. And if they don't get somebody to answer, then they just close the case and move on. But if I can get a cell phone number so that, we're pretty sure that you'll be able to answer the phone call, they'll just verify the information that I put in there about your company, about what you're manufacturing, and a little bit about the process. So again, it's very simple. I can take care of it for you. I just need, a little bit of information.
Okay,
if you're not
perfect.
sure
Thank
what the NAICS code is, you can find it on a copy of your tax return. So if you're not sure if you have one in manufacturing or not, you can Google to find a list of what your specific code stands for, and you can find your specific code. It's right on your tax return.
Right.
Thank you.
And I can always help you look at that up as well if you need
Yeah,
help, because I go onto a specific D&B database through a government website. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking if they were on the side thinking, well, I should double check that, make sure I'm good. They could check that before even calling to make sure they're not wasting anybody's time,
Yeah. Yeah. Happy to help you. Okay. Any other questions at this point? Okay, I'm going to move on. So for companies that are not eligible for the grant, you're not for profit, and if you're a manufacturing company, you certainly are for profit. Not a retail company. You cannot be an organized comprised of just volunteers. You cannot be a labor union. You can't be a government entity or an organization who has received the grant the previous year. Training services, let's talk about this a little bit. So training services, they can be provided in a number of different ways. It could be public or private educational institutions. It can be a private training company, a private instructor. It can be a subject matter expert within your company, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Or it can be a combination of any of these. FloridaMakes, we have a third-party provider network of trainers that we bring in to do a lot of the training. The subject matter expert, let's say you have a piece of equipment on your production floor, and maybe your maintenance supervisor does training with people every 6 months or once a year, so that they know how to properly either clean or maintain that piece of equipment. That manager supervisor's time that they spend training people, that time is also reimbursable through the grant. So, just another little something to think of, any internal trainings that you may do at your company. The training can be done at your facility. It can be done at a training provider's place, or it can be a combination of those locations, or it could even be online training. So, it really is pretty versatile and pretty open for what they do allow. The other thing, it can include occupational skills designed to meet specific requirements. So maybe there's some special kind of training that's specific to your industry or specific to a piece of equipment, or whatever that may be. We can work that into the grant. Another thing that they have also added, and this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, they realized that, a lot of times you don't always have the training that you need, and maybe it's something very specific for your company and it needs to be developed. They have allowed 25% of the total grant funds to be utilized for development. And when we bring trainers in, we can also develop some of that training for you.
Hey, Paula, you mentioned in bullet 1 on that last slide that it could be public or private educational institutions, private training companies, private instructors. Does the person doing the training have to be qualified, or do they have to go through some process to be qualified, or is there any specificity there?
No, they don't have to be qualified. I mean, they just have to be acceptable by your company to be doing the training.
Okay, so they don't have to be certified in any certain thing in order to be able to be counted as a qualified trainer or something?
No.
Okay,
No,
cool.
not.
Thanks.
Sure. So I like to give some examples of training because a lot of times, you're bringing this to a company and they're saying, oh, great, we want to have training. And then they have to come up with a list of what they want the training for. And they're like, oh, I don't know where to start. So, and I also, I work through a spreadsheet process to gather all the information from my companies that I work with. And I also have a spreadsheet of many, many, many different trainings that we have done in the past. So, it just kind of helps to see things on paper and say, that sounds good, but I'd like to do this or that. So that's just helpful. But some of the training, professional development, as I said, we do leadership training, management training, PMP, team assessments. We can do Kaizens, if you're working on lean within your organization, if you're looking for some kind of strategy to improve the efficiency. At one company, we actually did strategic planning training. The training can be technical, it can be hard skills training such as computer, it can be Excel, SolidWorks, it can be to do with your MRP system or your ERP system, or maybe you're not implementing a new system, or maybe you are, but maybe some folks need some training on your current system. So that also is inclusive for the grant. The training can be delivered in person or it can be online. Some other examples, we have an industrial manufacturing technician apprenticeship program. That is included anything to do with lean, if you need 5S training, if you're looking to do a process map of your company, if you need greenbelt, print reading, conducting job assessments. Maybe you've got some folks in your production inventory control area that want to be certified as a CPIM. Maybe you also need some CNC training or team building, ISO, strategic planning, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is really very important. And if you do DoD work, FloridaMakes currently has a grant that is separate from this, but we can put some other things on this for training afterwards. But we have a grant if you need to be CMMC level 3 certified. We have a grant that will help you with getting that assessment done. And for those of you who are in the DoD space, that just to have that assessment done could cost you a few $1,000s. So, it's a good thing to utilize if in fact you're in that industry. Excluded training, and a lot of people say, I need training, but I'm not sure. And I always say it's easier for me to tell you what I know is not going to get approved versus what will be approved. These specific trainings do not get approved through the state grant because they figure you're in business and you should be doing these things as a business. So OSHA 10 specific, not covered. OSHA 30 will be though, or other kind of safety training. And I'll tell you, it's really in how the grant is written. So it's how it's written up, because training, it's not just, if you think about, I'm going to a training class and I'm going to learn about 5S training. Training is really knowledge transfer. So I'll say there's kind of an art, if you will, on how to write this up for the grant. But anyway, OSHA 10 is not covered. Any new hire orientation, again, this grant is for incumbent workers that have worked for your company for at least 6 months. So, they should have already gone through any kind of new hire orientation. Any diversity and sexual harassment training, English as a second language, not covered. But I will tell you that in certain cases, if you have specific training that we will be putting into the grant and you need it in Spanish, let's say, we can possibly help you with that, but not training as a second language for English. Any degree programs, a lot of companies already have a program that folks will be going for their degree, and if the training isn't specific for the manufacturing company, it's not going to be covered. Workplace literacy or soft skills training, and training that takes part of a conference where food is included. And I'll give you an example of that. A lot of times, and I'm sure we've all gone to these, you go to Phoenix and you're going to a conference, it's in a very large room. It's not really training, let's say. It's really more of a conference. Maybe it's a supplier conference, and you're, maybe going to listen to some speakers and learn about a few things, but it's not really training as the state views it. Allowed costs for the grant, tuition or training cost, the instructor wage. And this piece is, and again, I do all of this work for you, so you don't really have to remember all of these things. I just like to tell you so you're aware of it. So in the case that you have a subject matter expert that's going to be doing training, internal training within your company, they allow up to $35 an hour. So let's say that supervisor that's going to be doing the training, they make $32 an hour. So in that scenario, we would write that grant training line item. They were going to do so many hours of training. It would be at $32 an hour. It would be, you would then get the reimbursement at either the 50 or the 75% rate, depending on how many people are at your company. But essentially, you can get partial payback for the person who's doing that internal training. If it is an outside instructor that we're bringing in, they allow up to $200 an hour for that. Also, if there are textbooks or manuals that have to be purchased for that, that can be included in the grant. The curriculum development, again, that is they will not allow it to exceed 25% of the total grant amount. So let's say we're going to ask for $100,000 in grant monies. Only $25,000 of that can be utilized for development of training for your company. But still a good thing if you need to do training. And we need to help develop that, and then you can have that training, utilize that training for new folks come down the road. Why not? If you need to make copies, you also get reimbursement for that. So, all the way around, it's a good thing. Disallowed costs is employee wages or fringe benefits. So again, this is a reimbursement training grant. So the person who is actually doing the training is what you're getting reimbursed for their time or for what you're paying for that training. It's not the people that are going through the training. Although I do utilize the employee wages for the people that are taking the training, I utilize that for the company's direct input costs to get the grant. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides here. Any capital improvements that you're doing, let's say you're going to buy some computers because you're going to set up a computer lab. Those capital improvement costs, or you're going to buy a new machine because you need more training. That cost relies on the company. There's no reimbursement from the grant to actually buy equipment. Traveler food is not reimbursable. Any membership fees, we talked about getting CPIM certified. There's a membership cost for APICS. That membership fee is not reimbursable, but the training is reimbursable. Again, any conferences, exam fees without training, and I will explain that a little bit more too. There are some particular things that maybe some of your folks have a certification in, and there are some certifications that maybe every 2 or 3 years you have to renew that. In order to do that, you could just go in and take the test. You wouldn't have to do any training, and that's what they mean by that. So if they're actually going to take training before they take the exam, then we can include that. And of course, any equipment that you buy is not reimbursable.
Paula,
So,
this is
yes.
Paula, can I interrupt real quick? This is Christine.
Sure.
I just have a question. What are the more popular training topics right now that manufacturers are looking for? And are the training mostly virtual now, or is it on site?
So I would say probably the majority of training that I have been doing lately, there's a lot on leadership skills, supervisory skills. There's a lot of companies that promote within, and you know, they have a good person who's working in production. They're like, wow, you know, we need a new supervisor, so let's promote this person. Well, that person doesn't really know how to manage people. They don't know anything about, you know, communication skills, you know, how to read people. So there's a lot of training with that. The training, it really depends on the company, whatever the company is comfortable with. We have done some online training, but the majority of them are wanting the in-person training. You know, it's better to have that interaction in a classroom environment, but you know, it works either way.
Perfect,
Did I
thank you.
answer it? Okay, sure.
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure. The application process may take up to 45 business days, and that really kind of equates to almost 2 months. I can tell you last year during COVID, July 1st, they had, I want to say, I think it was $4 million in the grant fund. That money was gone in a couple of months. A lot of companies were going after that money, and I'm sure it's going to be the same case this year. So, you know, if this is something of interest to you, we want to make sure that we can gather all our information together and get it put in as quickly as possible. Organizations are required to provide a minimum of 50% of the direct training cost. Excuse me. And what I mean by that, so if we're going to ask for $100,000 and it's at a 50% reimbursement rate, the state is going to want to see where the company is putting up $100,000 towards this grant. And I do this very easily for you. That's where we look at the wage of the employees that are being trained. So all the hours added up for all of these employees most certainly covers that cost. I also, if your training is going to be on site, I also include the cost for the company. Let's say it's going to take place in a conference room. So I take the square footage of that conference room, and you know, you have lights on, and so I you know, I figure money in for that because you're paying to have this conference room available for these people to take training. So if you are a 50 or less company, you have to show 25% of the direct training costs. And again, I do this very easily for you, so please don't let it be like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? But not to worry. So once the application is sent in, I will write the application for you. It's done online. I manually have to enter everything, but then you would review it, and there are some documents that you have to provide, which we'll talk about as well. But then you review it, and then you hit the submit button for your company. Excuse me, just a second. Okay. Once that application is sent in and it's approved, you would receive an electronic contract from CareerSource, basically saying, you know, we're going to give you this money and you agree to take it. That will have to be electronically signed. Once that is electronically signed, you will receive a spreadsheet that will list out all of the training classes, the costs that they are approving. There's a number of different tabs on the spreadsheet. And again, once we get to that point, I will go through all of that with you as well. You know, I walk everybody step by step through each and every process. The reimbursements, they want them to be submitted on a monthly basis. So once you get approval, and you start training, then we would want to look at once the training is complete, and it could be one training, it could be 3 trainings, it could be 10 trainings, whatever's completed at that, in that month, then we would submit the reimbursement for that. And again, I will walk you through that process as well. And then just every month his trainings are completed, we would send that in. One other note I wanted to just tell you, once you get approval for the grant, because I get this question a lot, let's say they get approved for $100,000, and as as the year goes by, because we all know things, great plans change, right? If things change and you're not going to be able to utilize all monies, they're like, oh, do we get penalized? Or you don't get penalized. During the grant process, there is a 6-month survey, I guess we'll say, that we need to do and send it to Career Source. And basically, they're looking at how much of the money have you used, and are you planning on utilizing the rest of the monies? Because if you're not going to utilize the monies, then they want to be able to give it to somebody, another company that will utilize it.
Paula, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take typically to get the approval, and how do we track it? Once we submit our application, how do we track if we get approved?
Okay. So, again, we have nothing to do with the whole administration of this, but when I do this application online, and the company representative who's kind of doing this with me, they will have a sign on to the Career Source website. They will share that with me so that I can write the grant, put it in there, and then they can do the final pieces of it. But they can go online and it will show the status. And now they're very general statuses. It will either say in reviews, or they're waiting on something. But there really is no way to call someone who's coming up and say, hey, where am I in line, and how is that going? So it's really just kind of a waiting game, honestly. But again, everybody has been waiting for July 1st to put these in. So there are going to be a lot of companies submitting grants. So as I say, it can take up to 8 weeks. So, depending on when we submit it, I would say figure 2 months to know if you get approved. And then once you get approved, then you'll get the contract to sign, and then the spreadsheet, and then, we'll start going through the process. Does that answer the question, or did I miss something?
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, sure. This last statement on, yes.
One last question before you move on. If I'm a manufacturer, I already have some training kind of in the pipeline, should I still apply, reach out to you and apply, or should I wait till I'm ready to begin my new calendar for training?
No, you want to apply. The money is not going to be there for a very long time. You don't have, so once you get approval, you have 12 months to use the money. You don't have to use it right away. But if you have training in your pipeline, you want to know if you're going to have grant monies or not.
Okay. And then how do we pick the instructors? Do we get to decide, or are those chosen for us?
Well, it can work both ways. I tell companies, and companies find it much easier. I say, use me as your one-stop shopping. I can bring in trainers. I can do the application. I can help you with reimbursement. If you have somebody that you want to use for training, then I can write them into the grant. But the way things are today, with people not really having the workforce that they need, why utilize your time to look for trainers or do that when I can do that for you?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure. The last bullet on this slide, this is only important at the very end of your 12 months once you have approval. All final reimbursements must be submitted no later than 60 days from the expiration date of the contract. So let's say you get approval September 1st. You have 12 months from September 1st to utilize the grant funds. So you can do training up and through August 31st. Now, once you get into August of the next year, and let's say you're still doing training in that last month, we need to make sure that we get our reimbursement request in before 60 days of the end of that grant year. If it comes in on day 61, they're not going to reimburse you. But again, I'm kind of here checking and, you know, making sure everything's good and communicating with you to make sure we're all on track. The reporting side of things, and I have a graph that I'll show you this, but basically the things that you need to report for the people that are being trained is their name, their date of hire. You can document their citizenship. It's kind of a yes or no. Their social security number, if it's a recognized credential in your company zip code. And this, obviously this is from 2020, but this is basically the format that they use. So once you would get grant approval, again, you would be hearing from me and we would be getting together and going through all of these things. But typically the HR department is going to fill this out. So it's every person in the company that's going to be trained. So we fill this spreadsheet out one time for all the employees, and then we upload it to a secure location. That's it. That piece is done. Simple as that. Substitution request, again, they introduced this a few years ago, which I was very happy to see because, you know, again, we have great plans, but things happen. You know, and since we have to put together a 12-month training plan and apply for it once, we can't go back next month and say, oh, I forgot something, I want to do this. But they do allow for 2 substitution requests throughout the year. So let's say, and it's dollar for dollar training. So they'll allow 2 substitution requests for the year. So let's say we have 10 lines of training, and of those 10 lines of training, 2 of them you know you're not going to do because you just got this call from a customer and the customer says, you know, we have this issue and you need to find a way to fix that process. So, you know, 2 lines of training, let's say it equals $5,000. We're going to take that off the approved list and we want to do $5,000 of training to do a Kaizen to figure out this process so that it works well for our customer. There is a specific form for that. I will help you fill that out as well, but just to let you know that, you know, this is not in concrete that, you know, whatever we put in for the 12 months that you cannot change. So you can, but there are, you know, again, specific guidelines around, you can only do two a year. So just something to be aware of. After approval, you'll get the contract to sign. You will get the spreadsheet. Now you can start training. You have 12 months from your approval date to utilize the funds. So even though the grant year opens July 1st, let's say you get approval October 1st, you have from October 1st to September 30th to utilize the funds. So again, you kind of see where some of the dates can get a little confusing because, you know, the situation is this date and another situation is another date. So and I'm just kind of watching my time. I want to get into the other grants, which won't take long, but allow time for any other questions. So how to apply, you know, I'm happy to give you the CareerSource website of where you can apply if you want to do it on your own. I'm just here to help you. But, you know, if you want my help, please contact me and I'm happy to do so. We will help you with the 12-month training plan, get the trainers, help you prepare the application for submittal. Again, you submit it, I don't submit it, you do. I write it for you, but you submit it. Once you submit, and then I'll help you with the reimbursement process. Now, I will tell you documentation that is required by the company in order to do the application. You will need your latest quarter 941 tax form. You will need your W-9, and you will need a tax clearance letter, which in the beginning I told you I have a link that, you know, to get that. One other thing that I ask companies to get, it's not an absolute requirement, but it makes the process go a little easier. If you can get a letter from your bank that says you're in good standing and you've been a customer for so long. And I have a template letter that I can send you for that as well. So those are the 4 things that you'll need to have so that we can upload that into the application. That's what I have for the IWT grant. And I guess before I go to the veteran grant, I'll just see if there's any other questions.
I just have one more question, Paula. Do we need to retain documentation and submit it, for example, invoices or copies of checks for our records, anything of that nature? Do we need to retain that and submit that as well, or that's not necessary?
So that is part of the reimbursement process, and that, first thing is let's get approval. And then once we get to the reimbursement process, then I'll spend time and go through the company with what's required for that. But basically, you would need an invoice for the training. And I do want to mention that any of the training on your application, until you get approval, if you started training before you got approval, this grant is not retroactive. So any training that was done before the approval date, you will not get reimbursed for. I wanted to mention that while I'm thinking of it. But so the reimbursement process, you'll need your invoice, you'll need proof of payment, and it's not just a copy of the check, but you have to show that the check was actually cashed. There is a reimbursement form that comes in that spreadsheet that needs to be filled out every time. And then depending if it's internal training or if it's vendor training, there's a sign-in sheet that needs to be completed. And again, I'll go through that when we get to that point, but that's basically what is required.
Perfect. For instance, let's say my company doesn't really know what type of training we need. Is it possible that we could contact you and spend a few hours with you just to go over what's available out there and what your recommendations are?
Of course. Yeah, happy to do that. And as I said, I have a spreadsheet of trainings that we've done in the past. I'm happy to send that to anybody that would like to look at it. I'm also can come to your company and we can kind of, do a tour and look around and, just have a conversation about, where are your pain points? What do you think you want to have training on? And maybe there'll be some things that I see, or maybe you'll see on this list and you'll think, that would be a good idea. So whatever works for you. I can do a phone call. I can come and see you. Whatever works best for you. I'm flexible.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So the next grant is the Veterans Grant, and this is the Veterans Florida Training Grant. And you'll see that these grants, they all have very specific things. So the Veterans Florida Grant, of course, they're a nonprofit organization created by the state of Florida to help veterans transition to civilian life. It's a good thing. Who are veterans? Somebody who served in the United States military and was released or discharged under conditions that were other than dishonorable. Just a little fact here, in 2017, 20.4 million men and women, about 8% of the population over 18 are veterans. So the Veterans Grant, this annual award amount is $200,000, and again, they may or may not change it, and I haven't heard one way or the other yet. When July 1st comes, then I'll probably have a more absolute answer on that. But typically, the Veterans Grant has not changed that number. So the difference in this one is it could be you could have hired this veteran yesterday, and you can get Veterans Grant money to train them. So it's new or existing employees. Another difference here is you can get up to $8,000 per veteran employee to be trained in a grant year, where the other one I told you is on average about $3,500 per person. The reimbursement rate on this is it's 50% across the board. Now here, the training must increase the skill set and knowledge base of the employee. So they're a little more particular about the type of training. Again, it's how we word it and, you know, what the training is going to consist of. One thing to note here, if the company gets up to $200,000 in that year and they would like more training dollars, this is done on a case-by-case basis. Basically, they have a, you know, a board meeting, and, you know, we would put in a request to get more money. And then typically they approve it, of course, depending on the kind of funds that they have. Now, I can tell you the last 3 years, the veterans have always had extra money in their grant fund. Last year, they ran out of money. So, you know, this pandemic has really affected a lot of companies, a lot of employees. You know, so thank goodness that, you know, these monies are around to help companies such as yourself. The requirements, they have to be a veteran employed in a qualified job. It's skill-based training that provides education and application of knowledge to an employee specific to developing competence in their industry and career. So, you know, it's really a little bit more focused on the employee and, you know, what their career path is and what their job is. It can also be provided through on-the-job training, in-house, corporate, or third-party training. So, you know, kind of pretty open on that as well. Again, if you need help with this, I can certainly, you know, give you the veterans website if you would like to apply for it. You know, it's not a requirement to utilize me to help you with this, but you know, again, I'm here and happy to help you. We'll get you signed on the website, and we have to get a request letter, and it's very specific. I have a sample of it as well that needs to be sent in to request the money, and then you'll be contacted by the veterans with an agreement. We can help you through the training requests and the reimbursement. The veterans grant, I will tell you, about everything is online now for them, which makes it a little bit easier, whereas the state grant, the reimbursement side is you have to email it in. It's not just, you just go online and send it in. So a couple of differences in these grants. They have, you know, the online process has made it much easier. And of course, I'll help you go through those steps.
Paula, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Based on your experience, what is the best way to attract veterans right now in manufacturing companies? And is there an organization that we should partner up with to find and recruit veterans?
So the Veterans Administration, you know, they do administer this grant. They can also help you to find employees, but, you know, just like everybody else, I mean, it's tough to find good employees no matter where you're looking. But certainly they are another resource to help find people, because they can also, they also have the ability to, you know, put this job out, you know, through a national network. And that's, you know, one of the things that FloridaMakes, we are part of a national network as well. Since we're the manufacturing extension partner for the state of Florida, in every other state in the United States and Puerto Rico, there is an MEP. And just to give you a quick example of that, let's say, this has happened numerous times last year during the pandemic. You know, a company was switching over from their product to make hand sanitizer or, you know, those face shields. And, you know, they couldn't find a lot of the materials that they needed. So they were calling us and say, hey, can you help me find this material? We would put it out through our Connex Florida database, but we also have the ability to put it out through our national network. So we could, I have a connection into the national network, and I could put a request out nationally to every state in the United States. Hey, does anybody know where we can find this? The veterans also have the ability to kind of put that job out nationally, if you will.
Perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure. You know, again, there's a specific reimbursement process for this, you know, and this, once you start the training, you know, you have to tell them who the veteran is that's starting the training, their job title, the last four of their social security, proof of vet status, which is the DD 214, and then the training class starting date. And then, you know, that kind of starts the process. And then once the training is complete, now the training for the veteran grant, they have to receive a certification or some kind of license for that training. In a lot of cases, you know, we can provide a certificate that says they were trained in this if we need to, from the FloridaMakes side. But so you do not have to submit the invoice for reimbursement on the veterans grant. Another interesting thing about the vets grant, to give you an example of this, you know, if you are training a welder, you know, as they're training, you're going to be utilizing welding wire, and you're going to be utilizing parts and pieces, you know, materials to have them practice welding. Any of those materials that your company uses, you can put in to get reimbursement for as part of the training. Typically, the veterans grant is set up by the training class. Let's say we get a PMP certification training class approved. Once that training class is approved, if you hire somebody next week and they need to go through that training, that training is approved, so that vet can start the training, which is a little bit different than the state grant, where we specifically ask for a training class and we tell them how many people are going to be in that training class. Again, they have to have a certification at the end of the training. Once the class is approved, you can send any veteran to the training as long as there's no changes. So the price didn't change, the content didn't change. And you can also, which is nice with the veterans, we can do the application. We can say, we want to do these 2 training classes. And then next month, somebody else says, hey, I'd like to have this training. You can add to your application as the training needs come up. So, that's another little difference. And then this is and I know we're like right on time, so I'm just gonna cruise through this, but there is also a grant that's available through the local counties, and I work in Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco counties. Each county is different, so they are part of the Career Source entity. The state grant is Career Source in Tallahassee. There are 24 other Career Source entities in the different counties in Florida. They all work autonomously. They all set their own rules, if you will, for their grant, what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. So if this is something that you're interested in, then I just say contact me, and we'll go through that things for the specific county, because they're all different. I do certainly thank you for your time today. I'm happy to have presented with you, and I'm very happy to have a conversation with any of you, answer any questions you may have. My information is here. If you don't have anything for me right now, maybe next week, and think, oh darn, I wish I would have asked that. Call me, email me. Happy to answer anything that you've got.
Awesome. Thank you, Paula, so much for taking some time to talk about manufacturing grants with us. Suzanne, do you have anything to close us out before I kick everyone off the line?
No, I just wanted to thank Paula for this information. This was so informative, and I learned some stuff. Like I told you the other day, this is a little bit new to us, so we're glad to be able to share it. And as mentioned earlier, it will be on our landing page in case you want to rewatch parts. If there's any questions or follow-up, you're glad to email Paula. Her information is here. And of course, anybody on the Saltmarsh team that you see here, we would be glad to connect you with Paula or try to answer your questions. So thank you guys for joining us, and have a great day.